The soft light of the laptop screen lit up Sarah's face as she read a message that would change everything. Her hands shook as she read the words that felt like a sharp pain in her heart. I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning, baby. Sarah had no idea we were moving in together next month. She's so clueless. It was heartbreaking. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The message was from her husband, James, to a woman named Lisa. James had kissed her goodbye that very morning and told her he loved her. He had promised to be home early for dinner with their 8-year-old son, Tommy. As she scrolled through the conversation, her stomach twisted with every message she read. The affair had been going on for 2 years. 2 years of lies, deception, and betrayal. There were photos, personal messages, and plans for their future together. It was all there, laid out like proof of a crime. Sarah had become suspicious about his late nights. Just 3 days ago, James had written, "Maybe I should tell her soon. I'm tired of pretending to love her." The words struck Sarah like a physical blow, pretending to love her. How long had he been acting? She remembered all the times he seemed distant, the business trips that happened more often, and all the nights he came home smelling of perfume that did not belong to her. Sarah had found the laptop by chance. James had left it at home while rushing to work that day. She had only opened it to check if he had photos from Tommy's recent soccer game. Instead, she discovered a conversation that revealed her entire marriage was built on lies. Her phone buzzed with a text from James saying he was working late again. "Don't wait up. Love you." The carelessness of it made her feel sick. Even now, while planning to leave her, he was still lying to her face. Sarah closed the laptop and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at the yard where Tommy played with their neighbor's dog. Her bright boy, with his happy face and contagious laugh, had no clue that his world was about to change. How could she tell him his dad was leaving? How could she explain that everything they thought they knew about their family was not real? She thought about Lisa, the woman who had taken her husband away. Sarah had seen her at several company events. Lisa was younger and prettier, with long blonde hair. Sarah remembered how James always praised her work and how dedicated she was. Now she understood why he had admired his secretary so much. The front door opened and Tommy ran inside, his cheeks pink from playing outside. "Mom, is Dad coming to my game tomorrow?" he asked, pulling at her shirt. He promised he'd be there this time. Sarah's heart ached a little more. James had missed the last 3 games, always claiming he had important work. Now she realized he had been with Lisa instead. "I don't know, sweetheart," she replied, trying to keep her voice calm. "We'll have to ask him when he gets home, but James didn't come home that night or the next morning." Sarah called his office and was told he was in meetings all day and couldn't be reached. She knew he was with Lisa, probably laughing about how easy it was to trick her. When James finally walked in late the next evening, Sarah had made up her mind. She wouldn't be the weeping, pleading wife. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. She would be strong for herself and for Tommy. "We need to talk," she said calmly as James set down his bag. "Can it wait?" "I'm tired," he replied, not even looking at her. "No, it can't wait." Sarah brought out his laptop and put it on the coffee table between them. "You forgot this yesterday." James's face turned pale when he saw the screen open to his messages with Lisa. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt unbridgeable. "Sarah, I can explain," he began, but she raised her hand to stop him. "Don't," she said quietly. "I've read enough to understand. 2 years, James. You have been lying to me and to our son." James ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she used to find charming, but now it filled her with disgust. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," he said. "I was going to tell you." "When?" she asked. "Before or after you moved in with her next month?" James looked surprised that she knew about their plans. "You read all of it?" "Every single message," she said. "The question now is what we do about it." James sat down heavily on the couch, looking older than his years. "I suppose you want me to end it with Lisa and ask for your forgiveness." "No," Sarah said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. "I want you to leave." James looked confused. "Leave? Pack your things and get out of my house. If you want to be with Lisa, go be with her. but don't expect me to pretend this marriage can be saved. Sarah crossed her arms, amazed at her own strength. I deserve better than a husband who pretends to love me. What about Tommy? James asked. What about him? You should have thought about Tommy before you decided to leave his family for your secretary. Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. You have already hurt him. The least you can do is be honest. James stood up and walked toward the stairs, then paused and turned back. I never meant to hurt you, Sarah. You have to believe that. But you did hurt me, Sarah replied. And worse, you hurt our son. That's something I will never forgive you for. As James packed his things upstairs, Sarah sat in the living room thinking about the future. She had no idea how she would manage as a single mother, how she would pay the bills on her part-time job, or how she would explain to Tommy why his father was gone. But one thing was clear. She was done being James's fool. When he came back downstairs with his bags, Sarah was still in the same place. I'll call you about seeing Tommy, he said awkwardly. Make sure you do, she replied. He shouldn't suffer just because you wanted a new life. After James left, Sarah went to check on Tommy, who was sleeping soundly. She kissed his forehead and whispered, I promise I will take care of you no matter what. You'll always have me. But as she closed his bedroom door, Sarah knew that taking care of Tommy was just the start. James thought he could walk away without consequences, but he was wrong. He had broken her world, but she wouldn't let him ruin her future, too. The next morning, Sarah made 2 phone calls. The first was to a lawyer. The second was to her sister Emma, who always warned her that James was too selfish to be a good husband. I'm sorry it came to this, Emma said when Sarah shared what had happened, but I'm proud of you for not taking him back. I'm scared, Sarah admitted. I don't know how I'll handle this by myself. You won't be alone, Emma said to her. You have me, Tommy, and more strength than you realize. James made a big mistake when he chose Lisa over his family. Now it's time to show him what he's lost. As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a feeling she hadn't felt in years. Hope. James might have thought he was getting away with his choices, but Sarah was ready to prove him wrong. 3 days after James moved out, he came back to the house without any warning. Sarah was helping Tommy with his homework when she heard the familiar sound of his key in the door. Her stomach sank as she realized he still believed he could just walk in any time. Sarah, James called as he came into the living room. He looked worn out and messy, not like the confident man he had been just days ago. Tommy, go upstairs and finish your math worksheet, Sarah said calmly. Daddy and I need to talk. Tommy glanced between his parents, sensing something was off. Is everything okay? He asked quietly. Everything's fine, buddy, James said, ruffling Tommy's hair. Listen to your mom. Once Tommy was upstairs, Sarah faced her husband. You can't just walk in here anymore, James. This isn't your home. It's still my house, too, James replied. My name is on the deed. Your name might be on the deed, but you chose to leave. You don't get to decide both ways. Sarah crossed her arms, surprised at how different she felt speaking to him now. A week ago, she would have been glad to see him. Now, looking at him just made her annoyed. James sat on the couch without being invited. I've been thinking about everything that happened about us. Have you? Sarah stood still, not wanting to get too comfortable in this conversation. And what have you concluded? I think I made a mistake, James said quietly. Leaving you and Tommy, walking away from our family. Sarah stared at him in shock. A mistake? That's what you're calling it? I was confused, Sarah. Lisa made me think I wanted something different, but now that I'm with her, I see what I had with you. James looked at her, probably thinking his eyes showed sincerity. I want to come home. You want to come home? Sarah repeated slowly. After telling Lisa that pretending to love me was hard, after planning a new life for months, after making me feel foolish for 2 years? I know I hurt you, James said, but people make mistakes. Marriages have tough times. We can work on this if we try. Sarah laughed, but it wasn't lighthearted. Work on this? James, you didn't just accidentally end up with someone else. You were in a relationship with her for 2 years. You made plans to leave your family. You called me clueless to your girlfriend. I was angry when I said that, James protested. I didn't mean it. Which words didn't you mean? Sarah asked. That you were tired of pretending to love me? That waking up next to Lisa was what you wanted? That our son was just an extra problem? James flinched. I never said Tommy was a problem. You said you'd have to think about custody because you couldn't let a kid mess up your fresh start, Sarah replied evenly, though her rage was building. How is that not calling your own son a problem? Sarah, please. James moved closer, but she stepped back. I know I messed up. I know I said hurtful things, but I'm asking for another chance. No, Sarah said firmly. James looked confused. No? No, you won't give me another chance? No, I can't come home. No, Sarah said. I won't work on this with you. She walked to the front door and opened it. I want you to leave. You're not even going to think it over, James asked, his voice rising. We have 8 years together and a son. That should mean something. It did mean something, Sarah replied. Right up until you chose Lisa over your family. Now it's over. What about Tommy? Don't you think he deserves his father at home? Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. Don't you dare use our son to sway me. Tommy deserves a father who loves and respects his mother. He deserves a father who doesn't hide things from his family. He deserves better than what you've done these past 2 years. James ran his hands through his hair, a move that annoyed Sarah to no end. I don't understand you. Most women would be happy their husbands came back. Most wouldn't question whether their husbands told the truth. Most wouldn't have to worry every time their husband got a message or came home late, Sarah shot back. I said I was sorry, James pleaded. No, you didn't. You called it a mistake. You said you were confused. You said Lisa made you think differently, but you never actually said you were sorry for lying to me. You never said you were sorry for breaking our marriage. I'm sorry for all of it, James said quickly. No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry things didn't work out the way you planned. But you're not sorry for what you did to us. James was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his tone was colder. What happens if I don't want this divorce? Then you'll face a costly legal fight, Sarah responded without hesitating. And I'll make sure Tommy knows the real reason his parents are not together. You wouldn't do that to him. I won't lie to him like you lied to me. When Tommy asks why we're not a family anymore, I'll tell him the truth that his father chose someone else instead of us. Sarah's voice softened a little. But I'd rather not do that. I'd prefer you to be honest with him. James stared at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. You've changed, he finally said. Yes, I have. I'm not the woman who needed your attention. I'm not the one who blamed herself when you were distant. I'm not the one who made excuses for your actions. She looked him straight in the eyes. I'm the woman who deserves better than you. Sarah, go back to Lisa. Live your life, but don't expect me to welcome you back. Sarah pointed to the door. I'm done being your backup. James walked slowly to the door but turned back once more. What if things don't work out with Lisa? What if I really want to try again in a few months? Sarah almost felt some pity for him. Then you'll be trying again with someone else. Not me. Never again. After James left, Sarah locked the door and leaned against it, her whole body trembling. She had stood up to him. She had been strong. She refused to take him back, even when a part of her wanted to believe they could fix their broken marriage. Mom, Tommy's voice called from the top of the stairs. Is Dad coming back? Sarah's son, Tommy, looked up at her with a worried expression. No, sweetheart. Daddy is going to live somewhere else for now because you two are not getting along. Sarah sat down next to Tommy on the top step. Sometimes grown-ups realize they want different things, but that doesn't change how much we both love you. Will I still see Dad? Tommy asked softly. Of course you will. You are the most important thing to both of us. Sarah hugged Tommy close, taking in the sweet smell of his hair. Nothing will change that. But as she held him, Sarah felt that everything had already shifted. James had made his choice, and now she was making hers. She was deciding to build a new life without him, one where she and Tommy could be happy and safe. That night, after Tommy fell asleep, Sarah called her divorce lawyer, Catherine Williams. "He came by today," Sarah said. "He wants to come back." Catherine asked what she said, and Sarah replied, "I told him no. I said it was over." Saying those words made Sarah feel proud. "Good for you," Catherine said. "Many women take them back the first time they ask." "I won't be one of those women," Sarah said firmly. "What do we do next?" "Next, we file papers and see what kind of man your husband really is when he feels his comfortable life is in danger," Catherine said. "Men like James don't often give up what they have without a struggle." "I don't care about a struggle," Sarah said. "I want to protect Tommy and build a future for us." "Then we're going to get along just fine," Catherine replied. "James has no idea what's coming." As Sarah hung up, she realized Catherine was right. James had spent 2 years thinking he could fool her, but now the situation had changed. Now Sarah was the one with a plan, and James was about to learn that underestimating her was a mistake. Sarah entered Catherine's office, which smelled of fine leather and fresh coffee. She listened closely as Catherine explained her financial situation. "Most of your assets are in James's name," Catherine said, sliding documents across her desk. "The house, the money accounts, even the car you drive all belong to him." "But we're married," Sarah protested. "Doesn't that mean half of everything is mine?" "In theory, yes. But James has been careful about protecting his money. He opened this account 6 months ago, and it's only in his name," Catherine pointed out. "He's been moving money around, preparing for this divorce long before you knew about the affair." Sarah felt sick. "How much can I expect?" "If we can't prove that some of these assets are shared, you might end up with just the house and not much else, maybe $50,000 in child support," Catherine said. "I'm not trying to scare you, but James has been planning this for a long time, so he gets to keep everything while I struggle to raise Tommy alone," Sarah said, anger rising. "That doesn't seem fair." "Fair and legal are often different," Catherine replied. "But there might be other options. Has James ever done anything suspicious with money, hidden income, or avoided taxes?" Sarah thought for a moment. "He always managed the finances. He said I didn't need to worry about money because it was too complicated for me." She remembered something strange from a few years ago when James got very upset with a visitor who asked about his business expenses. "He hurried me inside and talked to him alone," she said. "He claimed it was just routine business, but I felt he was overreacting." Catherine took notes. "What else? Any large deposits or unusual trips?" "A lot of business trips, but they seemed legitimate." Then Sarah recalled something. "About 6 months ago, he came home with an expensive watch. When I asked about it, he said it was a work bonus, but I never saw any extra money." Catherine wrote it down. "We might want to hire a private investigator to look into James's finances. It could be expensive, but if he's hiding assets, it could change everything." "How much?" Sarah asked, nervously. "About $5,000 for a complete investigation. I know that's a lot, but if we find something, you could end up with more in the settlement." Sarah felt overwhelmed. $5,000 was money she didn't have, especially with her part-time job at the local library. But taking almost nothing wasn't an option while James kept everything they had built together. "I need to ask you something else," Catherine said carefully. "This might be difficult, but it's important. Are you sure that Tommy is James's biological son?" Sarah was taken aback. "Of course he is. Why do you ask?" "If there's any doubt about paternity, it could change child support." Catherine looked gentle but serious. "I have to consider every angle James might use against you." "I'm certain Tommy is James's son," Sarah said firmly. But then a memory flickered in her mind, something she had pushed away long ago. "You seem uncertain," Catherine noted. Sarah hesitated. "It's nothing. Just when Tommy was born, he looked so different from James." "Different how?" "James has light brown hair and blue eyes, while I have dark hair and brown eyes. Yet Tommy was born with nearly black hair and very dark eyes." Sarah shook her head and dismissed her thoughts. "But plenty of babies change in appearance." "Has Tommy's hair changed?" Catherine probed. Sarah considered it. "Actually, it's gotten darker, not lighter." She felt uneasy discussing this. "Genetics can be complicated." Catherine leaned in. "Think carefully. Was there anyone else during the time Tommy was conceived? No, Sarah said quickly. Then she paused. Well, there was. Her face went pale. Who? Catherine asked gently. There was Antonio, but we never. Sarah buried her head in her hands. Oh, I can't believe I'm even thinking about this. Who is Antonio? Catherine inquired softly. He was a contractor who worked on our house about 9 years ago. We became friends because I was lonely. James was always so busy. Antonio was kind and funny, and he listened to me. Did you have feelings for him? No. Well, not really. We kissed once, but I stopped it because I felt guilty. Sarah looked at Catherine. But what about the timing? Tommy was born 8 months after James and I got back together after a break. I thought he was early, but the doctor said he was right on time. Sarah's hands shook. Antonio and I were close just before James returned home. Catherine paused for a moment. Sarah, I think we should think about getting a paternity test. No, Sarah replied quickly. I can't do that to Tommy. He looks up to James. Even if James leaves us, Tommy still loves his father. But if James isn't Tommy's biological father, it could affect the divorce settlement. James would have to pay support, and he wouldn't be able to claim custody to lower those payments. Catherine leaned back in her chair. I know this is a tough choice, but it could change everything. Sarah sat quietly for a few minutes, her mind racing. She thought about Tommy's dark eyes, so different from James's blue ones. James had always seemed slightly let down by Tommy, always wanting him to be more athletic and outgoing. She thought about Antonio's warm eyes and kind smile. If I had the test done, Sarah said slowly, and if Tommy isn't James's son, what would that mean? It would mean James has been claiming a child that isn't his for 8 years. It would mean he's been getting tax benefits for a child that isn't his. It could change the divorce process. Catherine's voice was straightforward, but her eyes were caring. It would mean James would lose all legal rights to Tommy. Would Tommy have to know? Not right away. We could do the test privately to see where we stand legally. You would have time to figure out how to share the news personally. Sarah closed her eyes and thought about everything James had put her through. The lies, the betrayal, the way he planned to leave her and Tommy for a new life with Lisa. She thought about how he wanted to come back when things didn't work out for him, expecting her to welcome him back. If James isn't Tommy's father, can I stop him from seeing Tommy at all? Possibly, yes. He wouldn't have legal rights to visit or take care of Tommy. Catherine paused. But Sarah, you need to think about what is best for Tommy, too. Even if James isn't his father, he has been there for Tommy for 8 years. James picked Lisa over Tommy, Sarah said quietly. He was ready to leave his son for a fresh start. Maybe Tommy deserves to know the truth about his father. Catherine nodded slowly. It's your choice, Sarah. But we need to act fast. The longer we wait, the more time James has to hide things or twist the situation to his advantage. Sarah thought about Tommy sleeping peacefully, believing his father was a good man who cared for him. She thought about James, probably lying in bed with Lisa, planning how to avoid paying for his family. She thought about herself sitting in this lawyer's office, figuring out how to manage finances while raising her son alone. Do it, Sarah said finally. Get the paternity test. Are you sure? James has been lying to me for 2 years. He's been planning to leave while pretending to care for us. He's hidden money and protected himself while leaving me with nothing. Sarah's voice grew stronger. If there's something he doesn't know, something that could change everything, I want to know what it is. Catherine made a note. I'll contact the lab today. We can have the results in less than a week. As Sarah left the lawyer's office, she felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind her was the life she had always known. The marriage built on lies, the husband who'd betrayed her, the future of struggling alone while James lived happily with Lisa. Ahead of her was the unknown, but also a chance for justice. She thought about Antonio, wondering where he was now, and if he remembered that day 9 years ago when they almost changed each other's lives. She thought about Tommy's beautiful dark eyes and wondered if they held a truth she had been avoiding for 8 years. By the time Sarah got home, she decided on one more thing. She was going to hire a private investigator to look into James's finances. She would fight for every dollar she deserved, and if the paternity test showed what she suspected, She would make sure James understood what he lost when he chose Lisa over his family. Tommy was waiting for her at the kitchen table, working on a puzzle. "Where did you go, Mom?" he asked without looking up. "Just running some errands, sweetheart," Sarah said, kissing the top of his head. "Just taking care of some grown-up things." But as she watched Tommy, Sarah knew that some adult matters were about to get very complicated. Rick Martinez looked just like what Sarah imagined a private investigator would. He seemed tired and had a face that could blend into any crowd. They met at a small cafe away from Sarah's neighborhood, where someone might notice her. "Tell me about your husband," Rick said, taking out a notebook. "Don't leave anything out. Every detail could matter." Sarah told him everything. The affair with Lisa. The hidden bank accounts Catherine discovered. The expensive watch that showed up without explanation. The official-looking man who had visited years ago asking about business expenses. "How long has James been at his job?" Rick asked. "About 6 years. Has a regional sales manager for a medical supply company." Sarah sipped her coffee to calm her nerves. "He travels a lot for work, or so he says. What's the company called?" "Harrison Medical Solutions. They sell equipment to hospitals and clinics." Sarah paused. James always claimed he was their top seller, that he brought in the most sales. Rick took notes. "Any idea what his salary is?" He said it was around $80,000 a year plus bonuses. Sarah frowned, but Catherine found bank statements showing deposits much higher than that. Some months he was putting in over $10,000. Interesting. Rick looked up. "Has James ever mentioned any side jobs, consulting work, anything like that?" "No, never. He always claimed his job kept him too busy for anything else." Sarah thought harder. Although he did get a lot of phone calls at odd hours, he'd step outside to take them, saying they were from clients on the West Coast. What about his computer habits? Did he spend a lot of time online at home? He was always on his laptop, but it was password protected. He said it held important work files that I couldn't see. Sarah realized how naive she'd been. "I thought he was just being professional. Now I see he was hiding something." Rick nodded. "I will start by looking into his work situation. I'll check his job, his pay, and his travel details. Then I'll look at his finances, bank statements, credit cards, and investments. If he's hiding money or doing something wrong, I'll find it. How long will it take? Give me 2 weeks, maybe less if I get lucky." Rick closed his notebook. "But Sarah, you need to understand something. If I find proof that James has broken the law, it will make things more complicated. Are you ready for that?" "What do you mean?" "If he's avoiding taxes or doing something wrong, he could face legal issues. That would change your divorce agreement, and he could end up with serious consequences." Rick looked serious. "Are you okay with that?" Sarah imagined James laughing with someone else about how he outsmarted her. She thought about him planning to leave Tommy while looking out for himself. 8 years of marriage where she trusted him completely while he looked for a way out. "I'm okay with whatever happens if it's the truth," Sarah said firmly. "Good. Now there's something else I need your permission for." Rick leaned in. "Your lawyer mentioned you might want a test to see who the father of your son is." Sarah felt her face heat up. "She told you about that? It doesn't apply to private investigators, but I won't judge you. I just need to know if you want me to look for the other possible father." "Antonio." Sarah's voice dropped low. "If that's his name? Yes. If the test shows your husband isn't your son's father, it might be important to know where the real father is for legal and personal reasons." Sarah hadn't considered that. "I don't even know if he still lives here. It's been 9 years. What's his last name? Rodriguez? Antonio Rodriguez? He had his own construction company, Rodriguez Brothers Construction." It felt strange for Sarah to say his name again after all this time. "I'm not sure if that company is still around." Rick wrote another note. "I'll see what I can find, but let's focus on James first. The test results should be back soon, right?" Catherine said by Friday. Sarah's stomach churned thinking about it. "I can't believe him doing this. You're looking out for yourself and your son. There's nothing wrong with that." Rick gathered his papers. "I'll start on James' background today. Meanwhile, I need you to do something." "What?" "Pay attention to James' actions. When he calls, when he visits Tommy, where he says he's going, keep a record of everything." Rick handed her a small notebook. "If he shows up trying to make up, don't let him in. Talk to him on the porch where neighbors can see and hear." "Why?" "Because men like James act out when they feel they're losing control, and they can do unpredictable things. Rick's face was serious. I don't think hell hurt you, but he might try to scare or manipulate you. Don't give him that chance. After Rick left, Sarah sat in her car for several minutes, trying to understand everything that was happening. A week ago, her biggest worry had been getting Tommy to soccer practice. Now she was hiring private investigators and questioning who her son's father really was. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "Can I take Tommy to dinner tonight? I miss him." Sarah stared at the message, remembering Rick's advice about logging everything. She noted the time and date of James's text, then replied, "Tommy has homework, maybe this weekend." James wrote back quickly, "I'm his father, Sarah. You can't keep him from me." Sarah made a note of that too, seeing how aggressive he sounded. Then she replied, "I'm not keeping him from you. I'm just keeping him on track." Her phone rang just seconds later. James's name showed on the screen, and Sarah almost didn't answer, but she remembered Rick's advice to watch for patterns, so she picked up. "We need to talk," James said without any greeting. "About what?" "About this divorce. I think we're both rushing." James used a calm voice that Sarah knew was meant to sway her. "Tommy needs us to stay together. He needed us together 2 years ago when you chose to be with someone else," Sarah said evenly. "Where was your care for Tommy then? That's different, and you know it." "How is it different, James?" There was a long, quiet pause. "I made mistakes, but that doesn't mean we should end our family." Sarah drove into the driveway and saw Tommy playing happily in the front yard with a neighbor's daughter, completely unaware of the chaos around them. "You threw our family away when you chose someone else." "I'm not with her anymore," James said quickly. Sarah was surprised. "What happened? It doesn't matter. What matters is that I realize what I lost. I want to come home, Sarah. I want us to be a family again. And what about the next time you feel restless? What about the next person you find interesting?" Sarah got out of her car and waved at Tommy. "I can't live wondering when you'll choose to leave us again. That won't happen. I've learned my lesson." "Your lesson." Sarah almost laughed. "James, you didn't learn anything. You just found out that it wasn't what you thought it would be. That's not the same as learning that you were wrong to hurt our family. Sarah, please, can we just meet and talk like grown-ups? We are talking like grown-ups. I'm telling you, our marriage is over." Sarah saw Tommy run toward her, glowing with joy when he spotted her. "I need to go. Tommy's waiting for me. Tell him I called. Tell him I love him and miss him." "I will," Sarah said, and she meant it. No matter what James had done, Tommy didn't deserve to lose his father's affection. But as she ended the call, Sarah wondered if James truly loved Tommy, or if he just wanted to be seen as a good father. She thought about the test results coming in 2 days. She hoped those results would answer many questions she had been too scared to bring up. "Mom, can we have pizza for dinner?" Tommy called, running to hug her. "Sure, sweetie, but homework first, remember?" "I already finished it." Tommy beamed. "Mrs. Peterson helped me with the tricky math problems." Sarah smiled at her son, noticing again how his dark eyes sparkled with excitement. They were nothing like James's light blue eyes or her own brown ones. They were warmer and more expressive. "That was nice of Mrs. Peterson. What do you want on your pizza?" "Pepperoni and sausage," Tommy said right away. "Can we watch a movie afterward?" "What movie?" "The one about the guy who builds a race car with his son. Dad said he would watch it with me, but he's not here anymore." Tommy's voice got quieter. "Is Dad ever coming back home?" Sarah knelt down to Tommy's level, looking into his beautiful dark eyes that seemed to hold all the answers. "I don't know, sweetheart. Dad and I are trying to figure some things out right now." "Are you getting divorced like Katie's parents?" Sarah's heart ached. Tommy was too young for this worry. Maybe. Would that scare you? Tommy took a moment to think, but Katie said it was not so bad. She had 2 bedrooms now, one at her mom's house and one at her dad's apartment. They didn't argue anymore. Sarah asked, "Did Dad and I fight a lot?" Not loudly, but quietly, like when she asked Dad questions and he got that angry look on his face. Tommy kicked a small stone on the driveway. "I always wondered what I did wrong." Sarah hugged Tommy tightly. "You never did anything wrong, dear. Whatever problems your dad and I have, they have nothing to do with you. I promise." You are the best thing that ever happened to us." As they walked into the house, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from James. "I'm not giving up on us. I'll show you that I've changed." Sarah looked at the message, then deleted it. James could send as many messages as he wanted, but she was done believing him. She had Rick looking into his finances and Catherine preparing her legal case, and in 2 days, she would have the paternity test results that might change everything. For the first time since she found out about James's affair, Sarah felt in control. James thought he could manipulate her into taking him back, but he had no idea what she could do when it came to protecting her son. That night, after Tommy was asleep, Sarah thought about Antonio Rodriguez. She wondered what he was doing, if he was married or had kids. She thought about that day 9 years ago when they almost changed each other's lives forever. Most of all, she wondered how he would feel if he knew that Tommy might be his son. Would he want to be involved? Would he want to take responsibility for a child he never knew about? Sarah pushed those thoughts aside. First, she had to get through the paternity test results. Then she had to handle whatever Rick found out about James. After that, she could think about the future and all the complicated questions it might bring. But as she fell asleep, Sarah sensed her carefully planned life was about to get very complicated. Catherine's voice on the phone was calm, but Sarah could hear something else beneath it. "The results are in. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" Sarah's hands shook when she hung up. She had been dreading this moment for a week, but she had also been waiting for it. The uncertainty was almost worse than knowing the truth. She arranged for Tommy to stay after school with his friend, telling herself she needed time to think before facing her son. The drive to Catherine's office felt endless, with every red light feeling like forever. "Sit down, Sarah," Catherine said when she arrived. The lawyer looked serious, but there was also something that seemed almost like satisfaction. "Just tell me," Sarah said, standing. "Is James Tommy's father or not?" Catherine slid a sealed envelope across the desk. "The results show there's a 0% chance that James is Tommy's biological father." It felt like the floor had dropped beneath Sarah. Even though she had suspected this, hearing it confirmed was overwhelming. She sank into the chair across from Catherine, staring at the envelope she was afraid to open. 0%, she whispered. According to the lab, James was not Tommy's biological father. "This changes everything about your divorce case," Catherine said gently but firmly. Sarah opened the envelope with shaky hands. She read through the technical language to the conclusion. James Peterson was not the biological father of Tommy. "What does this mean legally?" Sarah asked, though her mind was racing. "It means James has been claiming a child that isn't his for 8 years. He's been getting tax benefits and claiming status that he shouldn't have." Catherine leaned forward. "It also means he has no legal rights to custody or visitation. He could ask the court, but given his plans with Lisa, that would be hard for him." Catherine had a legal pad covered with notes. "This changes your financial situation completely." Sarah asked how. "James will owe back taxes for all the years he claimed Tommy. There will be penalties too, since the IRS doesn't like when people claim children that aren't theirs." Catherine's smile was sharp. "And since you were married during those years, some of that tax liability could fall on you unless we can show you didn't know." Sarah's head was spinning. "So James will get in trouble?" Catherine nodded. "Definitely. But how much?" "There's more. If James filed false tax returns, it raises questions about his other finances. We can demand a full audit." "What about Tommy?" Sarah asked, worried. "What do I tell him?" Catherine's expression softened. "You decide. Legally, you don't need to tell him anything now. You could wait until he's older or until the right moment. But does James have to know? Not yet. We can use this information in the divorce without him knowing why we have an advantage." Catherine's eyes lit up. "In fact, it might be better if James doesn't find out about the test results until we're ready." Sarah imagined the look on James' face when he realized the son he was ready to abandon wasn't even his. Part of her wanted to call him right away to see his reaction, but Catherine was right. This information was too valuable to waste on an emotional moment. What's our next step? First, we use this to demand financial disclosure from James. We tell his lawyer we have reason to believe he's hiding assets and committing fraud without revealing how we know. Catherine was clearly in her element now. Then we see how James reacts. Innocent people cooperate. Guilty people panic. If he panics, we know we're on the right track. Catherine gathered the test results and locked them away. Sarah, this gives you a lot of power over James, but power can be complicated. What do you mean? You need to decide what you want from this divorce. Do you want to get back at James for what he did? Do you want financial security for you and Tommy? Or do you want to protect Tommy from the truth about his father? Catherine's tone was serious. You might not be able to have all three. Sarah thought about that as she drove home. What did she truly want? She wanted James to face the consequences of what he had done to their family, but she also wanted to shield Tommy from any more hurt. She desired financial stability, yet she wished to feel good about herself every day. Most importantly, she wanted to stop feeling powerless. For 2 years, James had been controlling her, lying to her, and making her doubt her worth in his eyes. Now she held a secret that could shatter the comfortable life he was trying to create with Lisa. When she arrived home, Tommy was already there, having gotten a ride with Marcus's mom. He sat at the kitchen table, focused on a school project about family trees. "Mom, can you tell me more about Dad's family for this project?" Tommy asked without looking up. "Do you know what his grandparents' names were?" Sarah gazed at the family tree Tommy was creating with James's name at the top as father. The irony was almost too much to bear. "I'm not sure of all their names, sweetheart. You can ask your dad when you talk to him next," she replied. "He hasn't called me in 3 days," Tommy said quietly. "Do you think he forgot about me?" Sarah felt her heart ache. "No, honey. Your dad would never forget you. He's just busy with adult matters right now." But as she spoke, she questioned if it was true. Did James ever truly care about Tommy, or had he just been playing the role of a father? As evening fell and Tommy went to bed, Sarah found herself flipping through old photo albums. She looked at pictures of baby Tommy, searching for traits of James that she knew weren't there. Instead, she found herself remembering Antonio's warm brown eyes and gentle smile, and how he had always made her feel special. She wondered what he would think if he knew he had a son. Was he even alive? Had he married? Lives could change drastically in 9 years. Her phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. It was James. "Hi, James," she answered, trying to keep her voice even. "Sarah, I've been thinking about our last talk regarding us trying to fix things." James sounded weary, as if he had given up. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right." "Whatever it takes?" Sarah asked, remembering the paternity test results tucked away in Catherine's desk. "I'll go to counseling. I can change jobs if you want me to get away from Lisa. I'll do anything you say." His voice was pleading. "I just want my family back." "Your family?" Sarah echoed slowly. "Tell me something, James. What do you love most about Tommy?" There was a long silence. "What do you mean?" he finally replied. "I mean, what do you feel proud of when you think of being his father?" Another pause. "He's a good kid, smart, well-behaved." "That's it?" Sarah pressed. "That's what you love about him? Why are you asking this?" James sounded confused. "I want to know what kind of father you've been to Tommy all these years," Sarah insisted, her voice growing stronger. "From where I sit, it seems like you've seen him more as a responsibility than a joy. When was the last time you spent time with him just because you wanted to?" James fell silent for so long that she wondered if he had hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller. "I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to be honest. Have you ever really wanted to be Tommy's father?" Sarah asked. "Or have you just done what you thought you should?" "I think you're having a breakdown," he replied. "This is getting weird." "Answer the question, James," she said firmly. After a long silence, he replied, "Being a father is a responsibility. I've always taken my responsibilities seriously." "That's not what I asked. Do you really love Tommy for who he is? Or do you just love the idea of having a son?" She paused, realizing this was tough for both of them. "I'm doing this because I need to know who you are before I decide what to do about our future." "What kind of decisions?" he asked. "The kind that will change our lives," she replied mysteriously. I need to go now, but I want you to truly think about what I asked. After they hung up, Sarah reflected on their conversation. His answers had revealed everything she needed to know. He had never connected with Tommy the way a father should. He had been going through the motions, but his heart had never been fully invested. Maybe that was why he could so easily think about leaving Tommy behind for his new life with Lisa. Looking at the family photos scattered on the coffee table, she made a decision. She would protect Tommy from the truth about his real father, at least for now. But she would also ensure that James faced the consequences of his betrayals. Tomorrow, she would call Catherine and tell her to proceed with their legal plan. Sarah was prepared to use every tool available to secure a stable future for her and Tommy. And when the time was right, she would explain everything to Tommy in a way he could understand. She was determined to show James that underestimating her was a grave mistake. Early Monday morning, Rick Martinez called Sarah with news that made her hands tremble as she poured her coffee. "I found something significant," he said immediately. "Can you meet me this afternoon in a private place?" They agreed to meet at the cafe where they had first talked, but this time Rick appeared energized. He had a thick folder with him and the face of someone who had just solved a tricky puzzle. "Your husband has been very busy," he said, sliding documents across the table. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked, staring at bank statements, tax forms, and what looked like business contracts. Evidence that James has been running a side business for 4 years without reporting the income. Rick pointed to a list of payments. He had been selling medical equipment, which he obtained from his regular job, to private clinics for a higher price. In simpler terms, he was using his job at Harrison Medical to run his own competing business. Is that okay? It seems like fraud. It's also a way to avoid paying taxes and breaks his work contract. Rick's smile was serious. James has been making an extra $40,000 to $50,000 a year and hasn't paid taxes on it. Sarah felt overwhelmed. "How did you find this out?" "I followed the money. Those big payments you mentioned weren't bonuses. They were from clinics buying equipment from James's side business." Rick showed her more documents. "I also found proof that he's been using company resources like storage space and delivery staff for his personal business. What does this mean for my divorce?" "It means James could face serious charges if this becomes known: tax evasion, fraud, and misuse of company resources. There could be jail time involved." Rick leaned in. "But there's something more." "I looked into his relationship with Lisa." "What did you find?" "Lisa is married to a man named David since 3 years ago. He works for the state tax office." Rick had a slight grin. "She's been involved with your husband while being married to an auditor." Sarah let out a laugh, even though the situation wasn't funny. "You're joking. I don't joke about these things." "But wait, it gets even more interesting." Rick showed another document. "Lisa's husband is looking into odd tax filings for medical sales in this area. Guess who just got into his investigation? James? David is checking on his wife's boyfriend for potential tax fraud without knowing they are linked." Rick shook his head. "You can't make this up." Sarah tried to absorb all the information. "So James is breaking the law. Lisa is unfaithful with a man checked by her own husband, and none of them knows about each other. That's about it. But there's more." Rick pulled out another set of papers. "I also found out why James has been so eager to rekindle things with you." "Why?" "Because Lisa's husband is starting to suspect her actions. She's trying to end things with James, but he wants her to leave her husband and marry him." Rick was now serious. "Sarah, I think James is getting desperate. Plus, his business might soon be uncovered. His girlfriend wants to break up, and he faces serious trouble. He thinks getting back together with you is his only escape. How would that help him? If he is married to you, you can't be forced to speak against him in court. Plus, if he convinces you to take him back, he can claim his marriage problems are over and that he wants to be a good husband and father." Rick gathered his documents. Judges often treat defendants with stable family lives more leniently. Sarah felt ill. Even his efforts to reconcile were just another way to control her. So everything he said about wanting his family back, about learning from his mistakes, it's all been untruths. "I may not know for sure, but the timing seems very suspicious. He started wanting to reconcile with you right when Lisa began pulling away from him." Rick spoke gently. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I know this isn't what you wanted to learn." Actually, it was what Sarah had hoped for. Every new piece of news against James confirmed the plan forming in her mind. What should we do with all this information? It depends on your goals. We could give everything to the IRS and let them handle the legal issues. We could give it to your lawyer for the divorce, or we could hold on to it and see James's next move. What do you think? Rick was quiet for a second. Honestly, I think waiting is best. James is making bigger mistakes daily. The longer we wait, the more evidence we can gather. He paused. Plus, I'm working on something else that might interest you. What? I found Antonio Rodriguez. Sarah's heart raced. You did? He's still nearby, still runs a construction business, and he's not married and doesn't have kids. Rick observed Sarah's reaction closely. The question is, do you want me to contact him? Sarah's thoughts were racing. Antonio was still here, still single, no children. Did this mean he had been waiting? Did he still think about her the way she sometimes thought about him? I don't know, she admitted. I need to think. Take your time. But Sarah, if the paternity test results show what I think, Antonio has a right to know he has a son. The paternity test showed that James isn't Tommy's father, Sarah said quietly. But that also doesn't mean Antonio is. No, but the timing strongly suggests it. Rick's face showed understanding. This is a big choice. It's not just about you. It involves Tommy, Antonio, and the future you wish to create. After Rick left, Sarah sat in her car, trying to sort through her thoughts. In just 2 weeks, her life had been completely turned around. Her husband was involved in crime and had been using her as a cover. Her son might not even be James' child. The very man who could be her son's real father was just a short distance away, unaware of a possible child. In the chaos, Sarah knew she needed to figure out what she truly wanted. Not what was best for Tommy, not what would hurt James most, nor what was easiest or safest. What did she want for her own future? She thought of Antonio, how he had made her feel 9 years ago, valued and cared for. She thought about the chance that Tommy had inherited that kindness from someone who treated her well instead of using her. She thought of James, trying to rekindle their relationship, not out of love, but out of needing her to save him from the results of his own choices. She imagined how satisfying it would be to watch him dig a deeper hole for himself before revealing everything she knew. But mostly, she thought of Tommy, working on his family tree project, unaware that his world was based on untruths that were about to come crashing down. By the time Sarah got home, she had made several decisions. She would let James think he could restore their relationship, keeping him from making hasty moves to hide his actions or leave. She would gather more evidence on his illegal activities before disclosing what she knew, and she would find a way to meet Antonio Rodriguez, planning only to have a conversation for now. Tommy was waiting for her at the kitchen table, his family tree project spread out. Mom, I called Dad to ask about his grandparents, but he didn't answer. He's likely busy with work, sweetheart. He's always busy with work. Tommy's voice was full of sadness. Mom, do you think Dad doesn't want to talk to me anymore? Sarah looked at her son's kind face and noticed his dark eyes that were so different from James's. Her heart felt a little heavier. Your dad loves you very much, Tommy. Sometimes grown-ups get confused about what's important. Were you and Dad confused when you got married? This question surprised Sarah. What do you mean? She asked. Did you think you loved each other, but really you were just confused? Tommy's 8-year-old mind was sharp. Katie's mom said that happens sometimes. People think they're in love, but they might not be. Sarah sat beside Tommy, looking at his family tree project. I think your dad and I loved each other when we got married, but sometimes people change, and sometimes mistakes happen, and love can't always fix everything. What kind of mistakes? Tommy asked. The kind that can hurt others. The kinds that break trust. Sarah traced one of the family tree lines with her finger. Tommy, what would you think if I told you our family might be different from what we thought? Different how? Tommy asked. Sarah paused. He was still young for the whole truth, but maybe he could understand part of it. What if I said the most important thing about a family isn't just who you're related to, but who loves you? Tommy thought deeply. Like how Katie's stepdad isn't her real dad, but he goes to her soccer games and helps her with homework. Exactly like that, Sarah replied. Does that mean Dad isn't my real dad? Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Would that scare you? Tommy took a moment while coloring a branch on his family tree. Maybe a little, but if my real dad was someone who was nice to you, that might be okay. Why do you say that? Sarah asked. Because Dad isn't very nice to you. He makes you sad and worried, and he doesn't help at home. Tommy looked at her with those wise, dark eyes. My real dad would be nice to you, right? Sarah hugged Tommy, feeling both proud and sad about how much he understood about the tension at home. Your real dad, whoever he is, would be lucky to have you as a son. Can I ask you something, Mom? He said. Anything, she replied. If Dad isn't my real dad, do I still have to call him Dad? This question hit Sarah hard. Tommy understood more than she realized. What do you want to call him? She asked. I don't know. Maybe just James. That's his real name, right? Sarah saw that Tommy was getting ready for the chance that everything would change. Her 80-year-old son was braver about this truth than she felt. Tommy, no matter what happens, I want you to know that you are so loved by me and many others too. She kissed the top of his head. And one day, when you're ready, you might get to meet someone who has thought about you for a long time. Someone who might be very proud to be your real dad. Tommy smiled, the first real smile Sarah had seen from him in weeks. That sounds nice, Mom. That sounds really nice. As Sarah helped Tommy finish his family tree, she realized he would be okay. No matter what happened next, he was strong enough to face it. He also understood that the love he received from people mattered more than those who were meant to love him. Now, she just had to find the courage to reveal the truth about those people. Catherine Williams looked determined as she organized Rick's evidence like a general planning a strategy. Her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. This is better than I expected, she said, going through bank statements and tax documents. James has been hiding money and committing serious violations for years. Sarah sat across from her, trying to grasp the importance of what was about to happen. What happens now? First, we demand that James and his lawyer give full financial information. We will tell them we have proof of unreported income and unaccounted assets. Then they have 48 hours to show us records for everything he has earned in the last 5 years. Catherine smiled sharply. When they can't explain the money from his private business, we take action. What does that mean? Sarah asked. We will file a motion in court about James's actions. We will ask the judge to freeze his assets until everything can be looked into. We will also inform the IRS about the unreported income. Catherine relaxed in her chair. At that point, James could face serious consequences and lose his professional reputation. Sarah felt nervous. Isn't that a bit much? Sarah, your husband has been dishonest and lying to you about money for 4 years. He was planning to leave you behind to start anew with someone else. Catherine's voice was steady. He made his choices. Now he must deal with what comes next. What about Tommy? If James faces legal issues, what happens to him? Catherine's expression softened. That's where the paternity test results are important. If James isn't Tommy's biological father, then Tommy won't be affected by any legal troubles. It protects him from being linked to James's actions. And if we discover who Tommy's real father is, he may get to know him while James deals with the results of his choices. Catherine gathered the papers. Sarah, I know this feels like a lot to take in, but you hold a strong position right now. You have proof of wrongdoing. You can show that James isn't Tommy's father, and you have evidence of his attempts to manipulate you. When do we start? Today. I'm calling James's lawyer this afternoon to request the financial details. I expect to hear from James within a few hours. Catherine was right. James called Sarah's phone that evening, his voice tight with concern. Sarah, what's going on? My lawyer says your lawyer is making wild claims about hidden money and unpaid taxes. I don't know what you're talking about, Sarah said calmly, even though her heart raced. I asked Catherine to help get all the financial information for the divorce. Financial information? They want records from the past 5 years. They're questioning every deposit and business expense. James' voice grew louder. This is harassment. It's just due diligence. If you have nothing to hide, showing the records shouldn't be a problem. After a long pause, James's voice shifted from angry to desperate. Can we meet? Just us? I think there's been a misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? About my finances? About my business? I can explain everything if you just give me a chance. Sarah almost felt pity for him. Almost. James, if you have explanations, tell your lawyer so he can share them with mine. That's how a divorce works. But this isn't really about the divorce anymore, is it? James's voice was now softer, more serious. This is about getting back at me. You want to hurt me because I upset you. I want what is fair, James. I want my half of what we built together while we were married. Sarah kept her voice calm. If that seems like revenge to you, maybe you should think about why. Sarah, listen closely. You don't see what you're doing. If you keep pushing this, it could hurt all of us, even Tommy. Are you trying to scare me? I'm just warning you. Some things are better left alone. James's voice had an edge that Sarah had never heard before. I've shielded you and Tommy from a lot of trouble over the years. Don't make me stop shielding you. The call ended suddenly, leaving Sarah staring at her phone. The man she had been married to for 8 years had just threatened her, and she barely recognized his voice. For the first time, she questioned if she really knew James at all. She called Catherine right away. James just called, and I think he threatened me. What did he say? Sarah repeated their conversation. Catherine was quiet for a moment before she spoke. He's scared. Scared people do foolish things. Her voice turned serious. Sarah, be very careful over the next few weeks. Don't be alone with James. If he comes to the house, don't let him in. Do you think he'd actually hurt me? I think he's facing a lot of trouble, and desperate people are unpredictable. Catherine paused. I'm going to speed things up. Tomorrow morning, I'm filing for emergency relief to freeze James' assets immediately. Won't that make him more desperate? Maybe, but it will also make it harder for him to hide money or leave the area. Catherine's voice was firm. We can't play it safe anymore. James just showed what he can do by threatening you. Now we show ours. The next morning, while Sarah was having coffee, her phone rang. It was Rick Martinez. I have news about Antonio Rodriguez, he said without delay. I made contact with him yesterday. Sarah's coffee cup rattled against the saucer. You talked to him? Not yet, but I've been watching his business and think I know how to approach him. Rick's voice was careful. Before I go further, I need to know if you're serious about this because once I talk to Antonio, there's no turning back. What do you mean? If I tell him he might have a son, his life will change forever. Even if he chooses not to be involved, he will know. And if Tommy is his son, someday Tommy might want to know about him too. Rick paused. This isn't just about your divorce anymore. This is about sharing information that could change everything for him. Sarah remembered Tommy's question the night before about whether his real father would be nice to her. She thought of James' threatening call and how he claimed he had been protecting her from problems. She thought of the possibility that somewhere, a man had wondered for 9 years about what could have happened. Do it, she whispered. Talk to Antonio. Tell him everything. Are you sure? I'm sure. Whatever happens, Tommy deserves to know who his real father is, and Antonio deserves to know he has a son. Okay, I'll reach out to him today and call you tonight with his answer. After Rick hung up, Sarah sat in her kitchen, reflecting on how much her life had changed in just 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, her biggest worry had been getting Tommy to soccer practice on time. Now she was collecting evidence, confronting the man she had been married to for 8 years, and preparing to tell a stranger he might be Tommy's father. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. We need to talk face to face. This has gone too far. Sarah showed the message to her notebook and quickly typed back, all communication should go through our lawyers. James's response came right away. I'm coming over tonight after Tommy goes to bed. We're going to settle this. Sarah stared at the message, her hands trembling. James was coming, whether she wanted him to or not. She called Catherine immediately. Hes planning to come to my house tonight. What should I do? Call the police if he shows up. You don't have to let him in. And if he tries to force his way in, that's trespassing. Catherine's voice was sharp. I don't like how this is escalating. Maybe you and Tommy should stay somewhere else tonight. Where do you have family nearby? Friends? Anyone you could stay with? Sarah thought about her sister, Emma, who lived 40 minutes away. I could call my sister. Do it. Pack a bag for you and Tommy and go to your sister's house. Don't tell James where you're going. Catherine paused. And Sarah, make sure you take any important papers with you. Birth certificates, passports, anything James might use against you. As Sarah packed an overnight bag, she realized she was taking Tommy's birth certificate, the same one that named James as the father, even though she now knew that was not true. She wondered how it would look with Antonio's name in that place instead. "Mom, why are we going to Aunt Emma's house?" Tommy asked as they got in the car. "Because your dad wants to talk to me, and it's better if you're not there for that," Sarah said, trying to keep her tone light. "Is Dad in trouble?" Sarah glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Maybe, sweetheart. But whatever happens, it's not your fault. And it doesn't change how much you're loved. By you, by me, and maybe by someone else too, someone you haven't met yet." Tommy was quiet for a moment. "Is that someone the reason we're really going to Aunt Emma's house?" Sarah was impressed by her son's understanding. "Partly, yes. Will I like him?" "I think you will. I believe you'll like him a lot." As they drove to Emma's house, Sarah's phone rang. It was Rick. "I talked to Antonio. He said he wants to meet you." Sarah's heart raced. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that a woman he knew 9 years ago has a son who might be his. I said the timing fits and that the woman is now getting divorced and wants to know the truth." Rick's voice was gentle. "He didn't say much, but he gave me his number and asked me to have you reach out to him." "What if I'm not ready?" "Then wait until you are." "But Sarah, this man has been waiting 9 years to know what happened to you. Don't make him wait much longer." That night at Emma's house, after Tommy was asleep in the guest room, Sarah sat in the kitchen, staring at Antonio's number. Emma sat across from her, having listened to the whole story with growing wonder. "So, let me get this straight," Emma said. "James is in trouble. Tommy might not be his son, and the man who might really be Tommy's father is waiting for you to call him. That's about it." "Exactly. And meanwhile, James is probably at home right now, angry that I'm not there to pressure me into dropping the divorce." "Wow," Emma shook her head. "3 weeks ago, you were a worried wife whose husband was being unfaithful. Now you're some kind of fierce protector with evidence and old lovers waiting for you." "It doesn't feel like I'm winning anything," Sarah replied quietly. "It feels like my whole life has been a lie." "Maybe it has been. But that means you get to start a new life now. A real one with people who truly care about you." Emma reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. "Call him, Sarah. Call Antonio. Find out what really happened 9 years ago." Sarah picked up her phone and dialed the number before she could change her mind. "Hello?" A deep voice answered, warm and familiar. "Antonio, this is Sarah, Sarah Peterson. I think you've been expecting my call." "Sarah." The way he said her name made her heart race. "I've been thinking about you for 9 years. Rick told you about Tommy. He said you have a son who might be mine." His voice was careful, but she could hear the emotion. "Is it true?" "I think so. The timing makes sense, and he doesn't look like my husband." Taking a deep breath, Sarah said, "Antonio, if Tommy is your son, I want you to know that he's wonderful. He's smart, kind, funny, and he has the most beautiful dark eyes." There was a long pause. "Sarah, can we meet? I need to see you. I need to know for sure." "Yes. But Antonio, there's something else. I'm in the middle of a complicated divorce. If Tommy is yours, it's going to change everything." "I understand. When can we meet?" "Tomorrow, after Tommy gets home from school. I'd like him to meet you too, if you're ready." "I've been ready for 9 years," Antonio said quietly. "I'll be there." After Sarah hung up, she realized that tomorrow would be a big day. Tomorrow, she would find out if the man she'd never been able to forget was the father of her child. Tomorrow, she would learn if the family she thought she had was real or if another family was waiting to be built. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt hope. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Sarah's phone rang. It was Catherine, sounding excited. "The court granted our emergency motion. All of James's assets are frozen, and the judge ordered a complete financial review." Catherine's voice was triumphant. "But that's not the best news." "What's the best news?" "James's lawyer called 20 minutes ago. James wants to settle. He's willing to give you everything you asked for, the house, half of all assets, full care of Tommy, and support. Catherine paused. This is a complete victory. He's admitting he can't defend against our evidence. Sarah should have felt happy, but instead she felt empty. What's the catch? No catch that I can see. He wants to sign the papers today and have this over with quickly. Catherine's tone turned serious. But I suspect he's hoping that settling will stop the investigation from moving forward. Will it? No. Once we notify the IRS about the unreported income, they'll investigate, whether James cooperates or not. But settling quickly will protect you and Tommy from being involved in a trial. Sarah thought about Antonio, who would meet Tommy that afternoon. How quickly can we finish everything? If James signs today, we could have the divorce final within a week. Catherine paused. Sarah, this is everything you wanted. Why don't you sound happier? Because I realized what I wanted wasn't really about James. It was about being free to build the life Tommy and I deserve. And now you can do that. Yes, now I can do that. After Sarah hung up with Catherine, she called Rick to share the news about the settlement. Smart move by James, Rick said. He's cutting his losses and hoping the charges won't stick if he cooperates. What are the chances the charges will stick? Very good. I forwarded all our evidence to the IRS yesterday, and they've already started an investigation. Rick's voice was satisfied. James is going to have a difficult time ahead. What about Lisa? Sarah asked. Lisa's husband, David, filed for divorce yesterday. He'd been looking into James's actions for weeks before he realized his wife was involved. Lisa is facing charges in her divorce, and possibly worse if the IRS thinks she knew about James's actions. So James lost everything. Yeah, I'd say he lost everything. Rick paused. How do you feel about that? Sarah thought about it. I feel like justice was served, but mostly I feel ready to move on. Speaking of moving on, are you still planning to meet Antonio today? Yes, I'm nervous, but yes. Can I give you some advice? Of course. Don't make any big decisions today. Meeting Antonio and introducing him to Tommy is a lot for everyone to handle. Take it slow. Sarah knew Rick was right, but part of her felt ready to see what happened when she faced the truth. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, Sarah was pacing in her living room when the doorbell rang. Tommy was upstairs changing, unaware of the changes ahead. Sarah opened the door and gasped. Antonio Rodriguez looked just as he did 9 years ago, with a bit of gray in his hair and lines around his warm eyes. He wore casual clothes and held a small gift bag. Hello, Sarah, he said quietly. Hello, Antonio. They stood looking at each other, years of wondering between them. You look beautiful, Antonio finally said. You look the same. Not exactly. 9 years of wondering about you changes a person. Sarah invited him in, noticing how he looked around, taking in the life she built without him. Is he here? Antonio asked. Tommy is upstairs. He doesn't know why you're here yet. I thought we should talk first. They sat on the couch, keeping some space between them. Still, Sarah felt the same pull she had 9 years ago. Tell me about him, Antonio said. He's 8 years old. He loves soccer and building things with Legos. He's incredibly smart. He reads at a higher level and is learning basic Spanish from a tutor. Sarah smiled, proud of her son. He's also kind, funny, and wise beyond his years. Does he look like you? He looks like you, Sarah said softly. Dark hair, dark eyes, your happy smile. Antonio was quiet for a while. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Okay. That day 9 years ago when I almost stayed, did you want me to? Sarah met his eyes. Yes. More than I ever wanted anything. Then why didn't you stay? Because I was married. I thought marriage meant something, even when it made me unhappy. I was scared of what it would mean to choose you over James. And now? Now I know that staying with James was the mistake, not almost leaving him for you. Antonio reached into the gift bag and pulled out a small wooden truck, skillfully carved and detailed. I made this for him. I've been making toys for 9 years, thinking about the child I might have had. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You've been thinking about him?" she asked. "I've been thinking about both of you every day," Antonio said, as he placed the toy truck on the coffee table. "Sarah, I need you to know something," he continued. "When I left that day, when you asked me to go because you couldn't go through with it, I didn't just lose you. I lost the chance to have the family I always wanted." He paused, looking deeply into her eyes. "I never married anyone else. I never had kids with anyone else. Not because I couldn't, but because none of them were you." His voice was strong yet gentle. "If Tommy is my son, then everything I've been waiting for has been right here all along." Before Sarah could respond, Tommy's voice came from the stairs. "Mom, who's here?" Both Sarah and Antonio looked up to see Tommy coming down, stopping in surprise at the sight of Antonio. For a moment, the room was silent. Antonio gazed at Tommy with wonder, and Tommy met his gaze with curiosity. "You have dark eyes like me," Tommy said. "Yes, I do," Antonio replied, emotions thick in his voice. "Yes." Tommy then asked, "Are you my real dad?" Sarah's heart raced. She hadn't expected Tommy to figure it out so quickly. She looked at Antonio, who caught her eye, and then turned back to Tommy. "I might be. Would that be okay with you?" Tommy thought about it seriously. "Would you be nice to my mom?" "Very nice. The nicest I could be," Antonio assured him. "Would you come to my soccer games?" "Every single one." "Would you help me with my homework? Especially the hard math problems?" Tommy walked over to the coffee table and picked up the wooden truck. "Did you make this?" "I did. I made it for you, hoping that someday I could give it to you," Antonio replied. Tommy examined the truck carefully, running his fingers over the smooth wood. "It's really good. You're good at making things." "Thank you. I've had a lot of practice." Tommy looked up at Antonio, his dark eyes inquisitive. "Have you been waiting for me?" "My whole life," Antonio said quietly. Tommy nodded, as if that made perfect sense. He climbed onto the couch next to Antonio, still holding his truck. "Can you tell me about yourself? Like, what's your favorite color and what kind of food do you like? And do you have any pets?" Sarah watched in amazement as her son and the man who might be his father began to connect. Tommy's easy way with Antonio was striking, and soon they were talking like old friends. Tommy showed Antonio his school projects while Antonio shared stories about the construction business and the houses he built. "I build things too," Tommy said, bringing down his Lego creations to show Antonio. "But yours are probably bigger." "Yours are probably more creative," Antonio replied, looking closely at Tommy's Lego spaceship with genuine interest. Just then, Sarah's phone rang. It was Catherine. "Sarah, the settlement papers are signed. It's over. You got everything. The house, custody, alimony, half of his legitimate assets." Catherine sounded pleased. "Congratulations. You're officially divorced and financially secure." "Thank you, Catherine, for everything," Sarah replied. "What will you do now?" Sarah glanced at Tommy and Antonio, who were now building with Legos, their heads close together in concentration. "I think I'm going to focus on building the future I was always meant to have." After hanging up, Sarah realized that for the first time in 8 years, she felt completely free. Free from James's lies, free from worrying about money, and free from the fear that she wasn't good enough to deserve real love. "The divorce is final," she told Antonio when he looked up. "How do you feel about that?" "Relieved and ready to move forward." Antonio smiled, the same warm smile that had drawn her in years ago. "What does moving forward look like?" "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." Sarah sat down on the couch next to them. "Antonio, would you like to have dinner with us tonight? Nothing fancy, just pizza and a movie with Tommy." "I would love that more than anything," he replied. As Sarah ordered pizza and listened to Tommy chat with Antonio about soccer and school, she realized this was what happiness felt like. Not the anxious hope that someone would love her enough to stay, but the quiet confidence that she was with people who chose to be there. When James called later that evening, Sarah let the call go to voicemail. She no longer needed to hear his voice. That chapter of her life was closed. The voicemail he left was short. "I hope you're happy, Sarah. I hope destroying my life was worth it." Sarah deleted the message without a second thought. She wasn't the one who had ruined James's life. He had done that himself with his lies and betrayal. She had simply refused to let him ruin hers, too. As she tucked Tommy into bed that night, he asked the question she had been expecting. "Is Antonio really my dad?" "We're going to do a test to find out for sure, but I think so," Sarah answered honestly. "Do you love him?" The question surprised her. "I cared about him a long time ago. I'm just getting to know him again now. But do you think you could love him?" Sarah thought about Antonio's gentle way with Tommy, his patient answers to questions, and how he looked at her like she was precious. "I think I could. Does that worry you?" "No. I think it would be nice if you loved someone who was good to you." Tommy snuggled deeper into his blankets. "And I think it would be nice to have a dad who actually wanted to be my dad." "What makes you think Antonio wants to be your dad?" "Because of how he looks at me, like he's been waiting his whole life to meet me." Tommy's voice was getting sleepy. "James never looked at me like that." Sarah kissed Tommy's forehead, amazed by his insight. "You're right, sweetheart. Antonio has been waiting his whole life to meet you and me." As Sarah went to sleep that night, she thought about the future ahead of them. It wouldn't be easy. There would be tests and important conversations, but for the first time in years, Sarah felt like she was moving towards something instead of away from it. James had lost everything because he chose lies over truth and selfishness over love. Sarah had gained everything because she chose courage over fear and the possibility of true love over the comfort of familiar lies. Tomorrow she would begin building the life she was meant to have. Tonight, she was grateful that she had finally found the strength to claim it. 6 months later, Sarah stood in her kitchen, now wholly hers. She watched Antonio teach Tommy how to make pancakes from scratch. The test had confirmed what they all suspected. Antonio was Tommy's biological father, and the legal papers to establish his parental rights had been completed the week before. "The secret is not to overmix the batter," Antonio said, smiling at Tommy's eager face. Antonio was showing Tommy how to mix the batter for pancakes, guiding his smaller hands gently. "You want it a little lumpy," he explained. "Why?" Tommy asked, curious as usual. "Because the lumps disappear when they cook. If you mix too much, the pancakes get tough. Like mixing concrete too much." "Exactly," Antonio said, pleased. "You're getting good at understanding how things work." Sarah watched them with a smile. Over the past months, Tommy had learned a lot about building and materials from Antonio. He had also picked up on Antonio's kind teaching style and his genuine interest in what Tommy thought. The transition hadn't been easy. Tommy sometimes missed James. They had awkward talks about why James was no longer with them and the difference between biological fathers and those who choose to raise kids. But overall, there had been joy. Joy in watching Tommy thrive under the care of a man who wanted to be his father. Joy in seeing Antonio connect with a child he never knew he had. And joy for Sarah, who felt she was finally creating the life she dreamed of. "Mom, Antonio is teaching me how to use real tools next weekend," Tommy said, breaking into her thoughts. "We're going to build a treehouse in the backyard." "Are we?" Sarah looked at Antonio, who looked a bit embarrassed. "I might have gotten a bit carried away with planning," he admitted. "If that's okay with you." "It's more than okay. That sounds wonderful," she replied. Just then, the doorbell rang. Tommy rushed to answer it, coming back with Sarah's sister, Emma, who had become a regular part of their family. "Something smells amazing," Emma exclaimed as she took a cup of coffee from Sarah. "How's everything going?" "Pretty well," Sarah said, though she felt a hint of caution in her voice. Emma picked up on it. "But pretty well is not the same as great, is it?" "Everything's great, really," Emma reassured her. "Can we talk outside for a minute?" Sarah asked. They stepped onto the back porch, the place where Sarah had first kissed Antonio years ago. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted quietly. "Of what?" Emma asked. "Of how perfect everything is, of how happy Tommy is," Sarah confessed, wrapping her arms around herself. "What if it's too good to be true?" Emma took a moment to respond. "How is this like your past?" "James seemed perfect at first, too," Sarah said. "He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted." "James was never perfect," Emma said firmly. You told me he was controlling and not interested in having kids. You convinced yourself he was perfect because you were afraid of being alone. Is Antonio controlling? Does he dismiss your thoughts? Sarah thought about the last months. Antonio had encouraged her to go back to school. He asked for her opinions on everything and spent time with Tommy, building a real father-son bond. No, he's nothing like James, she said quietly. Then what are you afraid of? Emma pressed. Sarah hesitated, trying to understand her fear. I'm afraid I don't deserve this, that he'll mess it up, or that something will happen to take it away. Sarah, you spent years with a man who lied to you and left you alone. If anyone deserves happiness, it's you. But what if Antonio doesn't want to be with me anymore? What if something bad happens? Emma shook her head. You can't protect yourself from life by being afraid of happiness. Before Sarah could answer, Antonio came out. Everything okay out here? Just sister talk, Emma said. Antonio looked at Sarah with concern. You look upset. Did I do something wrong? No, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm just thinking about everything that's changed. Antonio stepped closer, his expression softening. Can I ask you something? Are you happy right now? In this moment? Sarah looked at him. His eyes were warm, full of concern for her. In the kitchen, she could see Tommy setting the table, humming to himself as he worked, and the smell of pancakes wafting through the open door. Yes, she said, I'm happier than I've ever been. Can we just enjoy what we have without worrying about tomorrow? Antonio asked gently. I've spent too long worrying, he continued. I don't want to spend the next years afraid to live the life we have. Sarah felt something lift inside her. You're right, she said. Mom, the pancakes are getting cold, Tommy called from inside. Let's go back in, Emma said with a smile. Can't keep the man of the house waiting. As they walked back into the kitchen, Sarah realized Tommy was now the center of their family, not in a burdensome way, but because his happiness mattered most to them. Antonio hadn't tried to take James's place. Instead, he had built a new relationship based on respect and care. These are the best pancakes ever, Tommy declared, his mouth full. That's because you helped make them, Antonio replied. Food always tastes better when you put in the work. Is that why Mom seems happier cooking now? Tommy asked, surprising Sarah. What do you mean? She asked. When Dad lived here, you always seemed stressed when you cooked, like you were worried about how it would turn out. But now you look like you enjoy it more. That's true, Sarah said carefully. Maybe it's because I'm cooking for people who appreciate it. Dad never said thank you for dinner, Tommy pointed out. Antonio always says thank you and helps clean up too, Tommy added. That's what partners do, Antonio said simply. They help each other. After breakfast, Emma went out to run some errands, and Antonio took Tommy outside to start planning their treehouse project. Sarah watched them from the kitchen window, noticing how easily they worked together, with Tommy eagerly listening to Antonio. Just then, her phone rang. She saw James's number, which she hadn't seen in months. Hello, James, she answered carefully. Sarah, I need to talk to you. His voice sounded tired and different. About what? About Tommy. There was a long pause. I heard through my lawyer that you had a paternity test done. Sarah's heart sank. She hadn't told anyone about it, except for a few close friends. Where did you hear that? It doesn't matter. What matters is that I know the truth now. His voice was flat. He's not my son, is he? Sarah looked out the window at Tommy and Antonio, who were busy measuring the oak tree in their backyard. No, James, he's not your son. How long have you known? Does it matter? It matters to me. His voice quivered slightly. I need you to understand something. I might not have been a great husband, and I made many mistakes, but I cared for that boy. I thought he was mine. If you cared, why did you walk away for Lisa? There was a long silence. I thought he'd be better off without me. I felt like I didn't know how to be the father he needed. Like what? Like understanding him. Like being patient with him instead of pushing him to be someone else. James was quiet for a moment. I kept trying to change him into a version of me, and when he didn't act how I expected, I thought there was something wrong. Sarah felt a wave of sympathy for James. There was nothing wrong with Tommy. I know that now. Yes, I see how happy he is with Antonio. He's so relaxed and truly himself. James' voice was filled with regret. I was the problem. I wasn't meant to be a father. You could have learned. You could have tried harder. Maybe, but I didn't. Now it's too late. James cleared his throat. I'm calling to tell you that I won't fight for any rights to Tommy. I won't cause trouble for you and your new family. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. I also want to apologize, not just for my mistakes in the past, but for not appreciating you. You deserve better. Sarah felt tears in her eyes, not for him, but for the time they had lost due to his choices. What about the legal issues? She asked. I'm on probation and working to pay back what I owe. Lisa and I both lost our jobs. He let out a bitter laugh. Turns out she wasn't what I thought. I'm sorry it ended that way. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. I made my choices. Sarah, will you do me a favor? What? Tell Tommy that my time with him was the best part of my life? That loving him was real? Sarah looked outside again. Tommy was climbing the oak tree, laughing with Antonio below. I'll tell him, she promised. Thank you. And be happy, Sarah. You deserve it. After James hung up, Sarah stayed in the kitchen for a while, absorbing the conversation. It was the first time he had genuinely apologized and taken responsibility for his actions. She realized she now had the closure she didn't know she needed. Mom, Tommy called from outside. Come see how high I can climb. Sarah rushed outside to find Tommy about 10 feet up the tree, grinning down at her. Antonio stood below, ready to help but clearly confident in Tommy's abilities. Be careful, Sarah called out. I am. Antonio taught me how to check the branches. Tommy climbed higher. This is where our treehouse will go. That's a great spot, Sarah agreed, her heart racing as she watched him so high off the ground. He's safe, Antonio said softly, standing beside her. I've been helping him make good choices. I know. I just worry. That's what mothers do. Antonio wrapped his arm around her shoulders, a gesture that felt natural now. Who was on the phone? James. Antonio's expression turned neutral. Everything okay? Better than okay. He knows about the paternity test and won't cause any trouble. Sarah leaned against Antonio's warmth. He also truly apologized. What do you think about that? Relieved. It feels like a chapter is finally closed. Sarah looked up at Antonio. Ready to start the next one. I've been ready since we met, he replied. That afternoon, while Tommy napped, Sarah and Antonio sat on the porch, discussing their future. I've been thinking about us, Antonio said carefully. What about us? About where we are headed. He took her hand and squeezed it. I know we're taking things slow, but I want you to know I'm not going anywhere. This is not temporary. What do you mean? I love you. I've loved you for 9 years, and I love you even more now. He spoke steadily. I love Tommy, like he's my own. Sarah felt her heart race. I'm not asking for any decisions right now, just sharing my feelings. Antonio held her hand a bit tighter. Whenever you're ready, I want to marry you. I want us to be a real family in every way. Sarah looked at this man who had waited patiently for her, welcomed Tommy, and been gentle with her heart. She thought about James's words. Be happy. What if I told you I was ready now? Antonio's eyes widened. Are you? I think so. I've been ready for a while but was too scared to say it. She faced him fully. I love you too. I cared for you 9 years ago, and I care for you now. I love how you are with Tommy, how you make me feel my best. I love how you listen and respect me, she added. With smiles and hope, they shared a moment that felt like the start of something beautiful. I love how you make Tommy laugh and how you've never made him feel like he had to earn your love. Sarah's voice grew stronger with each word. I love that you're here not because you need me, but because you choose to be with me. Antonio pulled her closer, his eyes shining with feeling. Does this mean? Yes. Yes, I want to marry you. Yes, I want you to adopt Tommy. Yes, I want us to be a real family. Sarah smiled, feeling a heavy burden lift from her shoulders. It means I'm ready to be happy. Antonio kissed her then, gentle and sweet. When they pulled away, Sarah realized she finally felt sure about her future. When? Antonio asked. I don't want a big wedding or a long engagement. I just want to start our life together officially. Sarah laughed, filled with joy. Is that crazy? No crazier than waiting 9 years for the right moment. Antonio stood up and helped her to her feet. Sarah Peterson, you just made me the happiest man alive. Soon to be Sarah Rodriguez, she corrected, and the name felt right to her. Mom, Antonio. Tommy's voice came from the back door. Why are you guys hugging so long? They turned to see Tommy standing there, his hair messy from his nap, looking at them with curiosity. Come here, buddy, Antonio said. We have something to tell you. Tommy came over carefully. Did something bad happen? No, sweetie, Sarah laughed. Nothing bad happened. Actually, something wonderful just happened. What? Sarah and Antonio exchanged glances. Then Antonio knelt down to Tommy's level. Tommy, how would you feel if I married your mom? Tommy's face lit up. Really? You want to marry Mom? I really do. And I want to officially adopt you too, if that's okay with you. I want to be your dad in every way. Tommy hugged Antonio tightly. Yes, I want that so much. Are you sure? Sarah asked. It's a big change. It's not really a change, though, Tommy said, stepping back to look at both of them. You guys already act like you're married, and Antonio already acts like my dad. This just makes it official, right? Right? Antonio agreed, his voice full of feeling. When? Tommy asked eagerly. Soon, Sarah promised. Very soon. That evening, as they sat around the dinner table eating the stir-fry Antonio had taught Sarah to make, Tommy announced that he had something important to say. I've been thinking about names, he said. What about names? Sarah asked. Well, if Antonio adopts me, I'll be Tommy Rodriguez, right? If that's what you want, Antonio said gently. You don't have to change your name if you don't want to. I want to. But I was thinking maybe I could be Tommy Rodriguez Peterson so I don't forget where I came from. Tommy looked between his parents. Is that okay? Sarah felt tears in her eyes. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That's perfect. And I was thinking maybe I could call you Dad instead of Antonio now, Tommy added, looking at Antonio shyly. I would love that more than anything, Antonio replied, his voice almost trembling. Okay, Dad, Tommy said, trying out the word. That sounds really good. Benny grinned. As Sarah looked around the table at her family, the one she was meant to have all along, she realized that happiness wasn't just something that happened by chance. It was something you chose, built, and protected. She spent years accepting less than she deserved, thinking a mediocre marriage was better than nothing. Now she knew that true love was worth waiting for, worth fighting for, worth taking risks for. James had given her the greatest gift of all by leaving. He had pushed her to find her own strength and discover what she truly wanted. Tomorrow she would start planning a wedding. Next month she would become Sarah Rodriguez. Next year she would watch Antonio officially adopt Tommy and become his legal father. But tonight she was just thankful to be exactly where she was with the people she was meant to be with. 1 year later, Sarah Rodriguez stood in her kitchen, getting ready for Tommy's 9th birthday party, singing softly as she decorated the cake she'd made. Through the window, she could see Antonio and Tommy putting the final touches on the treehouse they had just finished. Their looks of focus made her smile. The past year had been everything she'd hoped for and more. Their small wedding ceremony had been perfect. Just Emma, Tommy, Antonio's parents, and a few close friends in the backyard where they'd first met. Tommy had walked both of them down the aisle, proud to give his parents to each other. The adoption had been finalized 3 months later, with Tommy officially becoming Thomas Rodriguez Peterson. He'd started calling Antonio Dad right after the wedding, and the word felt so natural. Sarah finished her teaching degree and started working at Tommy's elementary school, where she was already beloved by students and colleagues. Antonio's construction business was thriving, and they had begun to think about possibly giving Tommy a little brother or sister in a year or two, but today was for celebrating how far they had all come. Mrs. Rodriguez, the doorbell rang. Tommy called from outside. Sarah wiped her hands and went to answer the door, expecting to see the first guests arriving. Instead, she found James standing on her front porch looking uncomfortable and holding a wrapped gift. Hello, Sarah, he said quietly. James? Sarah was surprised but not alarmed. She had heard that he was doing better, working at a new job and attending therapy. "I know I'm not invited to the party," James said quickly. "I just wanted to drop this off for Tommy, and maybe could I talk to him for a few minutes?" Sarah studied James carefully. He looked older, more humble than she remembered. "What do you want to say to him?" "I want to apologize and say goodbye properly. I'm moving next month for a new job. I wanted Tommy to know that I won't be around anymore and explain why." Sarah considered this. Tommy had asked about James before, wondering why he never called or visited. She had answered honestly but kindly, explaining that sometimes adults made mistakes that changed everything, and that James was dealing with the results of his choices. "Tommy's happy, James. Really happy. I don't want you to confuse him. I don't want to confuse him either. I just want him to know that leaving had nothing to do with him and everything to do with my own mistakes." James shifted the present in his hands. "Please, Sarah. Just 5 minutes." Sarah looked out at the backyard where Antonio was helping Tommy hang birthday decorations from the treehouse. Her family seemed perfect, filled with joy. But Tommy deserved closure, too. 5 minutes, she agreed. "And Antonio stays with us, of course." Sarah invited Tommy and Antonio over, sharing that James had come to say happy birthday to Tommy. Tommy was cautious but not unfriendly. He had understood a lot about his father over the past year. "Hi, James," Tommy said, staying close to Antonio. "Hi, Tommy." "Happy birthday," James said, giving Tommy a present, which he accepted without opening. "You've grown taller." "Yeah, Dad says I'm going to be really tall like him." Tommy's easy mention of Antonio as Dad caught James off guard, but he quickly regained his composure. "That's great. I wanted to talk to you about something important." James looked at Sarah and Antonio, then knelt to Tommy's level. "Tommy, I'm moving away soon, and I want you to understand something. When your mom and I got divorced and when I stopped seeing you, it wasn't because of anything you did wrong." "I know," Tommy replied plainly. "Mom explained it. You made bad choices and had to deal with the results. And you weren't really my dad anyway, so it was probably better for everyone," Tommy said. His words were simple, yet impactful. James paused, clearly feeling emotional. "Even though I'm not your biological father, the years I spent with you were the best of my life. I want you to know that—" "Okay," Tommy said, seeming unaffected. "I also want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't a better father or a better husband to your mom." His voice was heavy with regret. "You both deserved much more than I gave you." Tommy thought about this for a moment, then looked at Antonio. "Dad, can I tell James something?" "Of course, buddy. Say whatever you want." Tommy turned back to James. "I'm not mad at you anymore. Mom taught me that holding on to anger only hurts the person who is angry, and I don't want to be hurt anymore." Tommy spoke clearly. "But I don't miss you. I'm happy now, and I have a dad who wants to be my dad." James closed his eyes for a moment. Sarah saw that Tommy's honesty was painful for James, but also healing for Tommy. "I'm glad you're happy," James said softly. "That's all I wanted for you." "Then why did you leave?" Tommy asked directly. "I thought you'd be happier without me, and I was too selfish and confused to be the father you needed." James looked at Antonio. "But your real dad knows how to love you the right way." Tommy nodded as if this made complete sense. "Yeah, he does." James stood and looked at Sarah. "Thank you for letting me say goodbye." "James, wait," Sarah said, surprising herself. "I have something for you, too." She went inside and returned with an envelope. Inside were copies of photos from the past year: Tommy's first day of school, his adoption day, Christmas, and soccer games with Antonio cheering him on. "I thought you might like to see how well he's doing," Sarah said softly. James looked through the photos, his expression softening with each one. "He looks so happy, so confident." "He is." "And you," James said, looking at a photo of Sarah and Antonio dancing at their wedding. "You look so happy. I don't think I ever saw you smile like that when we were together." "I didn't feel this way when we were together," Sarah replied honestly. James nodded slowly, then handed the photos back. "Keep these. They're your memories, not mine." He looked at Tommy one last time. Be good, kiddo, and remember what I said. You're a great kid, and anyone would be lucky to be your dad. I will, Tommy promised. After James left, Tommy went back to decorating while Antonio and Sarah watched him work. How do you feel about that? Antonio asked quietly. Sad for him, but also grateful, Sarah said. She leaned against Antonio's shoulder. Grateful that we all ended up where we were meant to be, even if it took 8 years of challenges to get here. I don't think I would appreciate this life if I hadn't gone through the hard times. She watched Tommy hang up streamers with focus, and he needed to hear James take responsibility for his choices. It will help him understand that what happened wasn't his fault. That afternoon's party was perfect. Tommy's school friends came, along with Emma and her family, Antonio's parents, and several neighbors who had become close over the past year. The backyard was filled with laughter. The treehouse was a big hit, and Tommy's excitement was contagious. As Sarah watched Tommy enjoy his new treehouse, she realized this was what she had tried to create with James for 8 years, a real sense of family and love. But with James, it always felt forced, like trying to fit pieces of a puzzle that didn't match. With Antonio, everything fell into place. They supported each other's dreams, creating a space where Tommy could be himself without fear. Later that evening, after the guests went home and Tommy was in bed, Sarah and Antonio sat in their backyard, looking up at the treehouse, a symbol of what they had built together. I have something for you, Antonio said, pulling a small wrapped box from his pocket. It's not my birthday, Sarah laughed. It's the 1-year anniversary of the day you agreed to marry me. Antonio's smile was gentle in the evening light. I wanted to mark the occasion. Sarah unwrapped the box to find a delicate necklace with a small pendant, a tiny house with 3 figures carved into it, representing their family. Antonio, it's beautiful. I made it myself. The house represents the home we've built, and the 3 figures are you, me, and Tommy. He fastened the necklace around her neck. I wanted you to have something that shows what we've created. Sarah touched the pendant, feeling the care that went into it. I love it. I love you. I love you too. More every day. As they sat together in the calm evening, Sarah reflected on her journey. A year ago, she had felt lost, facing a troubling future. Now she knew her worth and had fought for happiness. She had built a life filled with love and respect, not fear. James had thought he could walk away, but Sarah proved him wrong. She discovered her strength, reclaimed her life, and built a family with Antonio, creating a future full of love. The way she found her joy was simple and beautiful. As Antonio's hand found hers in the dark, Sarah smiled, thinking about how everything started with the DNA test results. James never learned the truth about Tommy's background. She believed knowing would only bring hurt. But one day, if Tommy wished to learn more about his story, she would share the moment she placed those test results on Catherine's desk when everything changed. For now, it was enough to realize that sometimes the biggest wins aren't about defeating your rivals, but about creating something much better than what they tried to take from you. Their betrayal can turn into the best thing that ever happened to you. James left her for someone else, thinking he was choosing a better path. Instead, he gave her the chance to discover her true family, true love, and a true life. That was the sweetest form of justice.